Good morning. I'm Dr. Heather Goode.
I'm Dr. Marianne Potter. The focus of our paper is derived from the challenge of dismantling boundaries and how multi- and transdisciplinary approaches may be utilized to develop creative and critical thinking competencies in both African design and business educational contexts. This presentation offers an abbreviated overview of the larger study, which is more comprehensively articulated in the paper. Marshall asked the question, if our goal is to make education more dynamic, integrated, and meaningful for students, what models should we follow? What qualities should we embrace? In higher education in South Africa, there is no doubt that the Africanization of curriculum and more contextually sensitive approaches to empowering and enabling our students must be part of what we embrace. Within this call and mandate is the imperative to transcend disciplinary boundaries in different fields, including the context we explore within business and creative or design-based qualifications. The study is also particularly significant in terms of an emerging call to contextualize curricula for Africa, including adopting more decolonized transdisciplinary research approaches. Focus falls on the educator rather than the student experience in this regard. Educators not only design and assess these modules, but are also being called on to facilitate student experiences on new and innovative teaching platforms and take responsibility for further professional development, more so now with the need to operate within virtual learning environments. We consider how the educator's ability to liberate students from disciplinary boundaries through research engagement enables a greater scope of knowledge and competency application.
While we take as our paper's context the bringing together of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, Africa, and multi- and transdisciplinary approaches, we have to note that the Fifth Industrial Revolution is beginning to be identified through trends emerging currently. This is regarded as a universal phenomenon with global impact, but our scope of consideration is limited to the impact within Africa. And so while the Fourth Industrial Revolution has seen the intensification of smart technology, great automation, and increased connectivity, in South Africa, there is an inconsistency in how these aspects are available or appropriated. The one side effect of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, which is informing trends emerging for the Fifth Industrial Revolution, is the focus on the human-technology interface, where we question the impact of growing digitization of humanity. These discussions range from sustainability to the impact of the pandemic for remote work and the calls for new normal and a greater wellness. This bodes well for educational contexts being more human-centered and that way more student-centered, both in terms of higher education as a workplace and as a learning place. The reactions to the Fourth Industrial Revolution and the COVID-19 pandemic align well with African values, which encourage a more human approach to work and especially community. The Ubuntu philosophies, where the awareness that we are in community and what we do affects one another, has been amplified during the pandemic. This gives us an opportunity to start shaping how the Fifth Industrial Revolution will emerge in Africa and embed our African values in this journey. Having contextualized our study, we must also consider what does it mean to approach curriculum from a disciplinary, multidisciplinary, or transdisciplinary context. Using the UNESCO definitions, we can clarify this as a multidisciplinary approach is regarded as a curriculum integration which focuses primarily on the disciplines and the diverse perspectives they bring to illustrate a topic, theme, or field of work. A multidisciplinary curriculum is one in which the same topic is studied from the viewpoint of more than one discipline. Perspective, therefore, drives this approach. UNESCO defines a transdisciplinary approach as curriculum integration which dissolves the boundaries between conventional disciplines and organizes teaching and learning around the construction of meaning in the context of real-world problems. The value of this transdisciplinary approach lies in its ability to transcend disciplinary boundaries for a common cause, and this creates a stronger capacity to generate connectivity and collectivity within a collaborative environment.
The aim of the study was to examine higher education transdisciplinarity or multidisciplinarity in a bachelor's degree research context, and their impact in developing creative and critical thinking competencies. The chosen degrees assume a professional context where disciplinary boundaries may obstruct problem solving and understanding of the respective fields. These two qualifications, one a business qualification and the other a design qualification, affirm a transdisciplinary or multidisciplinary approach. Our research was qualitative in nature, using semi-structured interviews with relevant educators from the two private higher education institutions. These interviews were triangulated through a review of module outcomes and curriculum documents in order to explore both a constructed and enacted theory of educators in research modules. The hope is to encourage teaching and curricular reflection as the context through which research is enacted is shifting and new research methodologies are constantly emerging. While the disciplinary focus of each of the private higher education institutions is different, they draw on practice-based or practical workplace preparations for employability and specialization purposes. The Design Institute identifies as multidisciplinary and offers a range of qualifications from higher certificates to honors programs. The Business Institute identifies as transdisciplinary and offers qualifications from higher certificate to doctoral programs. These private higher education institutions, like their public counterparts, seek to offer education that is relevant and applicable within the African context. Both institutions implicitly and explicitly incorporate key aspects of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, such as the technology of things, and the Business Institute already surveys the emergence of trends beyond the Fourth Industrial Revolution. We aim to draw on the insights of at least 3 educators from each institution. Though this was attained at the Business Institute, only 2 were interviewed from the Design Institute, and so the depth of findings communicated are more strongly weighted within the Business Institute context.
After informed consent, the participants were interviewed through online platforms and recorded and transcribed audiovisually. We analyzed thematically and proceeded from there. When we looked at the specific modules, we noted that the research modules are offered in 3rd year at NQF level 7 in the bachelor's degrees. This is designed to prepare students for the context of the Fourth Industrial Revolution with real-world approaches and application of knowledge and problem solving. These modules are clearly focused with integrated assessments where students are expected to draw on other modules and apply these in their research. Therefore, these modules assess applied competence within a real-world context. The modules offered at the Design Institute explicitly include creativity and critical thinking in the assessment criteria. However, the outcomes of the same module imply a greater emphasis on critical thinking through asking for well-formed arguments. The module at the Business Institute includes components of critical thinking such as define, analysis, predictions, but refers explicitly to creative thinking, not critical thinking. And yet the assessment and assessment for criteria focuses more on critical thinking and the application of theory rather than innovation and creative thinking. Through several key thematic points from the interviews and thematic analysis, we wish to highlight 3 significant areas as part of the findings to this research question.
When asked how to describe your professional specialization or expertise, the educators from the Business Institute refer to non-academic descriptions which overlap between professional competence and academic work. This is seen in the responses that connect to the facilitation displacing lecturing and andragogy. It became evident that the educators from the Business Institute not only align the Institute's brand, but also have developed a unique branding for their teaching pedagogy as derived from the corporate experience. This was not noted in either of the research educators for the Design Institute, who locate their teaching pedagogy squarely within the private higher education brand.
In the context of the Design Institute, both participants derived their academic expertise and experience in relation to their professional qualifications and grounded their knowledge confidence in this. They indicated that their teaching experience required that they diversify in accessing and developing other competencies, which deviated from initial academic specializations. In this sense, both positioned themselves as design education and draw on multiple disciplines instead of integrating and going beyond disciplinary contexts. and thus they align strongly with the multidisciplinary focus of their institution. The approach to identifying professional expertise as educators is not grounded within a specific context of application, but rather in relation to their own competency development and agility in incorporating new skills. No specific Africa-centered context was given for this, and most educators interviewed tend to regard their professional expertise and the development thereof within a local and globalized context.
The responses to the consideration of how the holistic development of third-year students is enacted produced various insights. For the less experienced educators within the research modules, there was a stronger focus on working within a prescribed framework that sets clear boundaries. Within the context of the Design Institute, the boundaries enacted were restricted in terms of directing students towards conceptualization within a specialized design field. Whether this is because students tend to extend beyond their respective disciplinary specializations or lack the confidence in solving real-world problems is unclear. This could indicate that within a multidisciplinary context, the need for disciplinary boundaries emerges more in terms of regulating student learning from the perspective of the educators interviewed. Furthermore, disciplinarity directs the design research module to respond to the specialized design field within which the concept is developed.
In the context of the Business Institute, one participant found it difficult to articulate what constituted the holistic development of students, but she did note that being able to apply learning is critical. Two more experienced educators at the same institute were more confident and extended what defined the holistic development of students through referencing the ability to apply what had been learned, but also to take that further into the workplace. One participant from the Business Institute specifically noticed that the holistic development should also be measured against the students' ability to be agile in response to their learning.
While there is a lack of clear distinction between multi and transdisciplinarity definitions by the educators interviewed, all describe approaches that are clearly more non-disciplinary in emphasizing a problem-based approach and tend to support students as they evolve towards a transdisciplinary approach. This is more clearly seen in Design Institute, where vocational fields and specializations are used to describe curriculum streams more than disciplinary boundaries for modules and subjects. Educators link these approaches to volatile and dynamic contexts of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, which require constant evolution of content applicability. The Fourth Industrial Revolution context seems to account for the more broad assessment criteria being applied to these modules in order to remain flexible in anticipation of this quickly evolving context and the diversity of research topics explored by students.
All participants describe perceived benefits of a multi or transdisciplinary approach as enhancing the application of both creative and critical thinking by students. One used the phrase to think outside the box. This idea to move beyond disciplinary boundaries was seen as a value add. Educators at the Business Institute reported that students considered the impact of their recommendations. For the Design Institute, one participant particularly noticed that critical thinking result required in engaging the design research has a creative conceptual goal, as knowledge was used to influence and justify key design choices and decisions. Building on all of this, all participants felt strongly that both multi and transdisciplinary approaches are associated with systems thinking and systems thinking approaches. This led to our recommendations. Both institutions reveal that professional development is needed to align student experiences across lecturers. This is echoed in the need to include more clear definitions and additional core source material to feed into this alignment. The Business Institute celebrates African values and in the particular spirit of Ubuntu within socially accountable transdisciplinary research approaches. The focus on real-world problem, community-based problem solving, and the Design Institute echoed these sentiments, although this was directed more to the practical concept-based outputs that research fed into as part of community building. Community building being encouraged is not only part of the Ubuntu Spirit values reflection, but also the nature of transdisciplinarity in addressing community problems and enabling students as future professionals sensitive to the impact of their work within this mandate. In conclusion, the educators interviewed celebrate the potential of multi- and transdisciplinary approaches in developing creative and critical thinking for both design and business contexts in Africa. However, there's a tendency to first locate this globally and to look beyond Africa, first as a consequence of the Fourth Industrial Revolution and the dismantling of boundaries and the dissolving of boundaries it presents. More than this, there is an opportunity to engage with contextually relevant and real-world problem-based learning, which allows the improved application of knowledge. This seemed appropriate for both the design and business qualifications to continue then to offer their modules in this way and draw on both multi- and transdisciplinary approaches in future iterations. Thank you for all your support today. We will welcome questions at this time.